We've discussed how Vice President Harris was able to bait the former president during the debate. Another example, turning a question about fracking into a reminder of a New York Times report that much of the former president's fortune was inherited from his father. At least $413 million, according to the Times. Here's his response.
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised.
Perspective now from his niece, Mary Trump, author of the just-released book, Who Could Ever Love You? A Family Memoir. First of all, I have to ask you about the debate. What did you think? For me, it was the first time I've seen somebody figure out a way to completely rattle the former president, and in the most simplistic of ways, criticizing, suggesting people were bored by his rallies and leaving. And from then on, he was just yelling. That needled him so much, he was knocked off the rest of the night.
It was incredibly validating, that debate, because some of us have known for a while that is the way to go. But who's been in a position to press him in that kind of venue? Nobody.
There's one, figuring that out, and two, having the ability to do it, even if you know that's how to do it.
Well, that was the thing that she did so brilliantly. Vice President Harris both gave substantive answers to questions to help the American people get to know her better and what she's going to do for our country, while going straight at Donald's vulnerabilities. The narcissistic injury she inflicted on him in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the debate did exactly what it needed to do, which, as you just said, was make him unravel. He couldn't recover. And honestly, he's not going to.
You write in your new book, the trouble with Donald had started long before he entered school. At home, he tormented his little brother, Robert, a year and a half younger, and seemed to have nothing but disdain for everybody else, including and perhaps especially his mother. The kids in the neighborhood alternately despised and feared him. He had a reputation for being a thin-skinned bully who beat up on younger kids, but ran home in a fit of rage as soon as somebody stood up to him. I mean, it's fascinating to hear that description of a little boy and seeing the man.
That is one of the most damning and dangerous things about Donald Trump, and that is the thing that one of the things that makes him most unfit. He's never evolved from that. That's still who he is.
You see that in him now?
Absolutely.
Your book is very moving. It's deeply personal. You write about, your childhood growing up in the Trump family. Your father suffered from alcoholism. He died when he was just 42 years old. And you write about this comparison between how your father was treated by his father, by your grandfather, and how the former president was kind of molded into the person he is today.
Yeah. Interestingly, because my dad was 8 years older than Donald, he was the heir, he was the namesake, he was the oldest son. All of the attention was on my dad for a long time.
The expectation was on him because he was the oldest.
Exactly. Very much in the mold of that time. As the oldest son and namesake, he was expected to take over the family business / empire. And for reasons that aren't necessarily explicit, my grandfather found my father wanting, even though my dad had every intention of fulfilling that role. His problem was that he wasn't as tough as my grandfather wanted him to be, and he also had interests outside of the family business. He was an expert boatsman and fisherman and pilot, and my grandfather had nothing but contempt for those things. So by the time my dad was in his early 20s, my grandfather had already shifted his attention to Donald.
When you see Donald Trump on the stage last night, compared to what he was in 2016 or even 2020, do you see a big difference?
I do, especially from 20 years ago, but even from 8 years ago. He has much less impulse control to the extent he ever had any. He is incapable of bringing a thought to conclusion. He goes off on tangents. And I think part of it is because he hasn't been pressed. He hasn't been challenged. And he's gotten away with so much. This is a man who spent his entire life pushing the envelope to see what he can get away with. And as soon as he realizes nobody's going to stop him, he pushes the envelope some more.
There's so much in the book. Mary Trump, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anderson. It was wonderful to be here.